Hello, I am back again. My video now today is kind of a self-reflection of the last 10 years. In the 27 plus years I've been sober, I walked the path. It's my journey to change myself. That was really my goal when I quit drinking, was to change myself in such a manner that I would not only feel better about myself, but also be able to lay a legacy towards the way my dad raised me until 7 when he passed. And the first 17 years of my recovery, I really just took care of myself. A lot of what I've done when I quit drinking has really been on my own. Uh, kind of got the right counselor, so I was able to ask a lot of the right questions and figure out things that would help me maintain my sobriety and also educate me in ways that relapses just weren't going to happen. I was very determined when I decided to quit. I wanted to change everything. And about 10 years ago, I was hired in at a franchise for Jimmy John's. They were, when I was hired in, they were in the process of opening their second store. And family-owned business, Lebanese, and very, very good people. Kind of not hard to work for, but demanding in a good way. And I had some issues, even with that long-term recovery. I really, when I quit drinking, I was learning how to live as an adult at 27 years old. And that's a hard thing. You're learning how to interact with people without something in your system, without learning how not to be totally offensive. Because when you're a drinker, you just kind of throw everything out there. And I had evolved quite a bit by the time I got hired in there. And the owner was a guy who played professional baseball in the Tigers minor league system, local to the Michigan area. And he was still playing at the time I was hired in. And his mother worked in the store where I was at, a very high volume store, very busy with deliveries. I was a delivery driver. And his mother is a saint. She's really kind of like a second mother. And my folks, many may not realize, my mother and my stepfather live 400 miles away, and I have really not much family in the area. So keep myself busy with work seemed to be, and for the longest time, seemed to be the best way to maintain my sobriety. That has really been had been my biggest goal when I up until when I got hired in there. The mother and I became very friendly. She's very sensitive to other people's difficulties and getting through things, and she was a great sounding board for things that were bugging me. Um, I'm currently on Zoloft. That's been the last 3 years, but when I was first started working for them, my mind would go up and down, and uh, throughout my life, my brain kind of went like a yo-yo. I would sometimes tend to way overreact in my head about things, get extremely upset, and they provided an environment that was kind of like a second family. When I had issues with my car or other things, they gave understanding. Sometimes I was given loans to kind of get myself through a rough patch. Uh, Help me, if the car died, I loan me money to take care of that. And my own family had done a little bit of that, but it's kind of, when you're trying to establish yourself as an adult and change your life, you're trying to be independent, and you're trying to show your family and your friends and those that love you that you can be independent and you can take care of things yourself. And sometimes you can be too independent. And I think I'd been that way for a long time when I quit drinking, because when I initially quit drinking, my family did not have high regard for my behavior. I was drinking daily. Um, Through the course of my 7 years working for these people, I gained a lot of confidence in myself, even though I did. I realize now that I had depression issues, and I motored through that, dealing with some people who were difficult, um, even in some ways very selfish. Um, I never held it against anybody, but I just thought, really, you should be better. And uh, by the time I left them there, I was fired. They did not want to fire me, but I had quite a few accidents in the area that we delivered in. There was high traffic, and you really had, anybody that drives in Metro Detroit area knows that you have to have, even if you're not a delivery driver, you have to have your head on a swivel. Well, the last accident, it just said, you've had quite a few, you work quite a few hours, you are a liability, we have to let you go. Well, it was devastating. That's the only, one of the first times I had one job in my, in my 27 years of sobriety, and I was making good money, enough money to get myself through, and I had to change everything. And at the time I was getting ready to leave, I was thinking about going back to school. I was trying to make that move, and it was something of a confidence thing. I had not done well in high school, and it was probably partially due to dealing with issues with my dad passing at age 7, and depression, and some bullying and teasing that went on through high school. When I left there, I I just found a second job uh, just before I was fired, and I was at the end of my tenure there, my mind was really, I was going to some low places, and it was everything I could do to keep myself in check. I would had some very negative thoughts, and a friend of mine on Facebook told me about a former Lions quarterback that was doing a speaking engagement. I think he saw the way I was posing, and some of it was I was struggling. And it was negative, but it was negative that, like, why can't I figure this out? Why am I feeling like this? And he invited me to the speaking engagement with the Lions quarterback, and it was just, for me, it was something to do to take my mind off some of the negative things I had going on with me. And when I went to that speaking engagement, and the guy was very personal, very funny about a subject that's very tough. He had written a book, Real Men Do Cry, and I thought I heard a story about his son committing suicide, and I thought that's what the book was about, and I had never read it. I felt compassion for him losing a son. I believe he was 15. He not even out of high school, I'm pretty sure. And so I get to the event, and he starts talking about his personal experience with his son committing suicide and his own issues with depression. And I had a chance to talk to him afterwards. I realized some of the stories that he told hit home with me, and I realized that there was an issue there. And talked to him a little bit about maybe some medications or some of the things I could do. And he suggested I talked to my doctor, gave me a couple different medications, and the one that I most heard people talk about taking was the one I talked to my doctor about. I got on it, and for about 2 months I was still struggling, and they told me, it takes about 2 months to kick in. Well, on the last day of 2 months, I woke up, and I'm not a person who wakes up and, like, I just, for the longest time, I want to go, see the tree, go to the park and see the tree, the fall trees. And when I woke up, that's the first thing that popped in my head, and I go, wait, the other part of me goes, wait a second, what's going on here? It's working. And over the next couple of years, I have stayed with it, and this past January, I gained enough confidence to go back to school. And I had gone to Schoolcraft before, and my grade point average was god awful. I'm on academic death row, really. And when I applied, and I took one class, I had a B plus. And in high school, I never pulled those kind of grades. I put in the work. It was probably because back then I didn't, because I had all my issues with my dad and bullying and whatnot. It just kept me from performing the way I was capable of. And then in the spring, we had kind of set up a schedule of classes to take, and sociology was the next one. And I had no idea about sociology. I mean, the class itself. Well, at my age, and I'm darn near a senior, I have life experiences. In sociology, you're it's a study of society. Well, I've seen and done society for all my life, and I've seen the rough parts of it, and I know the good parts of it. So I didn't know the terminology, but I knew what they were talking about, and all I had to do is be able to associate the terminology with the definition of it as the class went on. And the teacher I had, she's been teaching well over 50 years. She told me that I had a very good grasp of the concepts, and that, you know, she thought it was just absolutely fantastic that I went back to school at my age. And I talked about some of the things that have changed me for my sobriety. When I decided to quit drinking, a big part of it was my sister was pregnant with her first child. I'm a little older, and I always wanted to be married and have kids, and that was a kick to the gut. Not that I didn't love my sister and want her to have kids and be happy. I just wanted to be me first. And I decided about a month later to do outpatient treatment. And I roll on for a couple months, and just before Christmas, and the day before Christmas Eve, article came out from the local columnist, Mitch Albom. He wrote an article about a guy who was my favorite Red Wing, and someone who admired his style. He had in hockey, you have guys who can score, you have guys who are tough. And it's a rare combination that you have both. The Red Wings many years ago had Gordie Howe. Well, they drafted a guy named Bob Probert. And Bob Probert had all that going for him, but he had issues with alcoholism. And I felt some camaraderie with him. I had known that when he was 17 years old, he had lost his dad. So we had that in common. We had alcoholism in common. He played hockey. I loved hockey. So right there's three things that put us together. The article really hit home for me and made me realize I had to make this work. I had to work my recovery. And it was hard because when I started doing this, I did it without my family because I thought part of this is they're going to say something that's going to piss me off and make me want to quit, and I don't want to quit, so I'm just not saying anything. My sobriety started April 16, 1988. My folks did not know for 6 months from the time I started counseling that I had done this. In fact, my stepfather approached me and goes, "You're not drinking. What the hell is going on?" Thinking maybe I was doing drugs. And I told him that I was in counseling, and he goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't want to be that way anymore." But getting back to me, my recovery date, about 3 weeks after I quit drinking, there was an incident with the Red Wings in the playoffs. They were playing Edmonton, and it's famous through hockey circles. The players went to a bar called Goose Looney's, and two of the players who were had alcohol problems were caught. I don't know what the circumstances were, but I believe they were arrested, and they were putting up a pretty good series. But I think getting caught with that was embarrassing for them, and the rest of the series went downhill. It was only maybe a week 3 weeks after I quit drinking. This happened, and when the series, I made up my mind. I mean, I'm 3 weeks clean. I really didn't even have a year underneath me. I wanted to reach out to Bob and give him support. At that time, I was working for Little Caesars, and it comes back as the day that was payday, and I was off. And I decided the series had just ended. I'm going to go down there and see if I can give him some support. So I go to the locker room door, and I asked if I could see Bob Probert. I'm 27 years old, and I'm thinking, if they don't let me in, well, I give it a shot. Well, he goes and gets one of the assistant coaches, and he asked me if I would go into the dressing room, and he asked me what's going on, and I explained to him I'm a recovering alcoholic, and Bob is my favorite player, and I know he's had some issues, and I'd like to be of help to him, be of support to him. And the assistant coach, Doug McLean, said, I appreciate what you're doing for yourself, and you need to concentrate on that. Bob asked to take care of Bob, and it was really nice. And so we finished our short conversation, and I went on my way. And I worked for Little Caesars for probably 2 or 3 years longer, and I was transferred to a store that was near where Little Caesars company headquarters were. We used to get research and development guys in our store. And players would come stop in on their way to talk to Mr. Ilitch if they had a meeting with him. One night I was leaving work, and I'd moved from Livonia to Detroit, and I got the email in Evergreen, and this woman's car had stalled out, and Evergreen is not a great area for a woman by herself to be late at night. So I turned my truck around and pulled up behind her, and I said, do you need I asked her if she had help. Part of the thing with me, with getting recovery, I wanted to change who I was and not just go by somebody who was having problems. And being it was not a great area, she declined my offer. So I turned my truck around, and I was going to just go home. And a voice inside me told me I couldn't do that. I think my desire to change who I was so great that what I did is I pulled back around. The car was on the road at 8 Mile in front of a gas station. I pulled into the gas station parking lot. I said, you know what? I know you don't want to get into my car, I understand that from the area this is. It's a cold November night. If you change your mind, I'm going to wait until your friend comes to get you. If you want to get in my truck, you can come on over. Yeah, and it's not. I I'm not sure why I did it, but I did it. And after a bit of time, it was rainy and cold, and her car was not turning over, so it was cold. And she asked me if the offer was still there to get in my truck, and I said, yeah. I said, we'll stay right here in the gas station till your friend gets here. I'm not going to try to take you somewhere or anything like that. And in getting off work, I happen to have my proper jersey on, and she goes, "Oh, you're a fan of his?" And I said, "Yeah." And I explained why, because of the article about how he struggled with alcohol. He was my favorite player. I had struggled with alcohol, and I gave up alcohol because I wanted to show a guy I found to be a hero. Uh, someone, an athlete I admired, that I could do what he did. And we talked, and she said, he comes into where I work. She goes, if you give my name, I'm so and so. They won't cover charge you cover, and if he's there, then I'll introduce you. And to me, that was great. I didn't, something like that is not guaranteed. People have their places to go, but you know, not necessarily was he going to show up when I was there. About a week later, I was coming home from work, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna pop in there and take a chance. And the Wings had played that night, and they lost the game on the way home. I was a little bummed about that. I got into the parking lot and gave girl's name. And she poured me a pop, and I was getting ready to sit down, and I heard her voice, and she's going, Bob, Bob, Bob. And not a couple minutes behind me, Bob Probert and Sheldon Kennedy walked into the walked into the establishment, and she made sure that we were introduced. Again, I had my Bob Probert jersey on, and she goes, Bob, this guy is your biggest fan. And he kind of looks me up and down, sees my jersey, and he is kind of laughing. He's got this smirk on his face, and he goes, well, we're going over the booth. Would you like to sit with us? And for me, that was that was a dream realized. So I sat down with him, and he asked me why I was such a big fan. And I said, well, of course, I love the way you play, love the way you fight, but there was an article a few years ago talking about your struggles with alcohol, and I quit drinking because I thought if you did it, I could do it too. And he asked me a lot of different questions about this, that, and other thing. He listened to everything I said. At the end, he goes, after being very supportive and encouraging, he goes, "What's your recovery date?" And I told him, and he replied with his, which was 1 year and 1 day after me, and he goes, and I'm gonna catch you. He goes, I'm gonna beat your sobriety time, and that was my motivation. At first, it was just, I think it was just if I stayed sober, then I was winning, and the choices I made since I had that encounter with him have been so remarkable. With going back to school, because I had told him I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to help people. I wanted nobody to go through what I went through. And about 5 years ago, he passed away. And I was, again, I think everything happens for a reason. Uh, one of the days of viewing, I actually had the day off. And so I went over to the Windsor area for the funeral viewing, and I'd never been able to tell Bob that I'd been sober for so long. I went up to the casket and touched his hand, and his wife was there, and I go, you don't know me, but I met your husband a few decades ago. I had quit drinking, but the reason why I told her the reason why I had and all that. I said, he's my hero. I've stayed sober ever since. I wanted to be like him, tough against my alcoholism. And it was probably I believe it was one of the best interactions she had at the funeral home. Uh, some coincidences, or just part of life. Bob's dad died was my 21st birthday. And I found that out because one of the other assistant coaches, Colin Campbell, did a video to show Bob what he was messing up by messing with the drugs and the alcohol. And the video went to his dad's gravestone, and that blew me away. That was 15 years into my recovery. So, that's about half the time I've had sober. And then another thing, almost 8 years after I ran into him, I got my first day on the job was at Compute Arena with the Plymouth Whalers. My boss had played with him in the minor leagues. My boss is walking around, they have Fan Fest going on. And my boss is walking around showing me different things. As Amwon is going ready to go on the ice, he goes, I just kind of want you to watch him drive it. And they were drive it and see what they're doing. There was a guy and two kids out on the ice. And the guy starts skating over, and he gets close, and I'm going, oh my God, that's Bob. And first thing that comes out of his mouth is, what the hell are you doing here? And I said, this is my first day on the job. My boss is looking incredulous. Like, I had not told him that I was recovering or anything like that. And he comes straight out and asks me, he goes, are you clean? I said, hell yeah, because I was. And he told Mark Owens, my boss, he's good, Gowie. You can keep him. And it meant a lot. I mean, everything, every every bit of the interaction between me and him made all the difference. In recent years, after he passed, his wife and kids have done a memorial ride. I've gone a couple. I've gone a couple times, and had some shirts made up for the kids. Um, Personal things for me because every day I think of Bob. I think of my sobriety. I think of him. Choices I made, and life has gotten better. I have nothing but great thoughts of Bob. Recently, the Red Wings did a hockey fest, which pretty much anything the Red Wings do, they promote. They didn't really promote this, and it kind of, I guess, maybe it's personal for me, but I thought this is a guy that really helped turn your franchise around, and yeah, you're doing this tribute for him, but you're not really promoting it. And so what I did is I ordered a boxing championship belt. I had it inscribed with his name, NHL, and they had NHL on it, and it also said heavyweight champ. And I gave it to his wife. And some of the articles that appeared in the paper showed the belt. She absolutely loved it. It was nice that the family recognizes me whenever I show up for different things. It's not. I mean, It's kind of another family for me. Not really, because I don't want to inject myself into their lives. But for me, Bob changed my life. And when somebody changes your life in such a profound manner, it's hard not to share it. And many times people don't understand why I feel the way I do about him. But he touched me for a moment, and it changed my whole world, how I look at things. Now I'm looking at doing other things to try and improve some of the things that have been a part of my life in my lifetime. And I do it partially because I love myself, but I love my father, and I love Bob Robert. And I figure the two men that reached out to me when that taught me and reached out to me when I most needed it. I owe them to give something back to the world, and with the medication and quitting drinking, my the way I look at people, the way I talk to people is 100% different than what it was years ago when I was a teen and angry, and partially because I had lost my dad, partially because many may not know this, but I just recently found out the details of my father. And my father was developing a drinking problem, I believe. And so by Bob doing that, he stopped the cycle. And I've had people on Facebook that I just, I tell them my story. I don't, you can believe what you want to believe, but this is who I am, and some of the people have quit drinking, and I've touched lives, and hopefully I've changed them, and I've made, somebody else's family better. I'm not, I'm not professional, but I also know that people need support, they love, and they need a direction, and I'm always willing to give that. Until the day I die, I somebody is struggling with alcohol or emotions or whatever, I will try to reach out to them if they want to talk. I will let them talk. I've learned over the years to kind of soft step some of this stuff because part of it is people overcoming their fears of change, of things getting better. And since I got on the medication, everything has gotten so much better that I don't feel the need to push. But if there's things I see, I'm willing to step up and say something so that somebody can feel better about themselves and change their lives in a positive way. So this is who I am. You can like me, dislike me. I can be a bull in a china shop, but I care about people and I don't want to see people suffer. And sometimes it comes off overbearing or annoying, and I understand that. And somebody doesn't want to be around that. I understand that too. I've learned to let people go as well as embrace them, and that's something that not all people learn. And I learned not to be as sensitive about how people look at me and look at it maybe about what's going on in their life. So I just want people to be happy and find their way. And this is my story. This is only part of my story. This is just glossing over the top of it. So, hopefully people can understand that you can make things good when they go bad. Just have to keep fighting and keep searching for an answer. Like Louis Zamperini always said, there's always an answer. Don't give up.